You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is director Cosima Spender. And we're going to be talking about her beautiful documentary entitled Andrea Bocelli, Because I Believe. Welcome to the show, Cosima.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I couldn't stop listening to this. This is a documentary that I think every first time I'm going to say this probably a number of times that everyone should own it. It should be in your library because it's one you'll want to watch over and over again. But I always like to watch things that make me happy before I go to sleep. So I made sure that I watched this and ahead of time. I mean, early in the evening, and I just kept listening and hearing Andrea Bocelli's voice the whole evening. So it was just, it really was it's a beautiful documentary. So I appreciate you making this. How long did it take you to do this documentary?
We went for about 6 months. We went 5 days every month to spend time with Andrea. He's got a very busy schedule, so he couldn't, give us so many days every month because he's traveling all over the world. And I really wanted to focus the film on his life at home rather than on the road to get a sense of the atmosphere of his house and his universe, which is full of love and full of beauty and music. And yes, it's also a love story between him and his great wife, Veronica, who's also his manager, and his children, and the love he has for opera and music in general, but particularly opera, and his homeland, Tuscany. So then it took us about a year really to edit, and maybe a little less than a year. But I took my time, and the producers were very supportive to get it right and to give a sense of the narrative of his life as told by him. Really, I was just a vehicle for him to tell us his story. And my job really was not only to honor that world that he's created through his voice, but also to make him relaxed enough to tell us his life story because he's quite he's so used to the media and he's so used to doing a quick interview. In fact, he was shocked when I told him, look, we're going to have more than just one interview. We're going to, have conversations and everyone around him was saying, look, he really doesn't like interviews. But in fact, we had like 3 or 4 sessions over the course of those 6 months that I was filming him. And yes, I think he was pleased that in the end it's a film that really he feels he owns in a way. That was the biggest compliment for me, that he felt he owned it.
Interesting, very interesting. Uh, so how much access? I mean, it looks like you had a lot of access to him and his family. Was that difficult to get all of that access, or were they open to that?
I think, I was lucky because he really wanted an Italian speaking director. And luckily, all the really famous directors in Italy were very busy and they couldn't do the film. So they came knocking on my door. And I've made documentaries for 20 years and I've made several documentaries in Italy, some for Netflix and some independently. Um, and when I met, we got on very well because one of his best friends is called Cosimo, and I'm called Cosima. And also, I was born and grew up as the crow flies an hour and a half from his house. It takes about 2.5 hours by car, but we really speak the same Tuscan. And I don't know if you know about Italy, but the dialects of each region really give a sense of identity to you. And people who come from the same area feel connected, whether it's in, the north, the south. And so we kind of really found it easy to communicate and to get on because we shared the language, the dialect, the sense of humor. I went to local schools in Italy as I grew up, countryside schools in a rural area, very similar to the area that Andrea grew up in. Obviously, he grew up, a bit earlier than I did, but still, the rural community in Tuscany is kind of unique and particular. So once I did the whole kind of interviews with the managers and the record labels and the producers, and then they decided to open their house and to do a portrait, they felt it was time for him to tell the story in his own words as well. So I think they were open to it. And then, in fact, I felt they were very open. They asked me, what kind of scenes do you want to shoot? And I asked them, but actually, what kind of situations do you think represent you? And shall we have this kind of? And so it took a while to decide what to shoot. And then once we got going, they gave me the access that I wanted, particularly the backstage access, because I've always been interested in the difference between front of stage, what people see, and what lies behind the stage, what lies behind the curtain.
Right.
And yeah, there's this great moment in the film where we see him performing in the ancient ruins of Caracalla down in Rome. And it's, magnificent and epic, and the ruins are behind him. And then he's running behind the stage to follow his football team who are playing. Inter Milan are playing in the Champions League, and he's like obsessed. And he was almost tempted to have the match in his ear during his
Ah,
singing performance, but he was dissuaded from doing that. But then between the songs, when maybe there was a soprano singing, he would just run at the back to follow the match. And it's such a brilliant contrast that shows, first of all, the ease with which he inhabits the front of stage. And, he's been singing for 30 years, so he's conquered his stage fright, and he tells us about conquering his stage fright when he was younger. He's conquered that, and he's got his repertoire that he really feels at ease with. So, and nothing's going to stop him from following his other passions. And he's got quite a few other passions, whether it's football or, going on a bicycle, uh, horse riding by himself, galloping across the countryside. And yeah, so, they were very at ease. They were very at ease.
well, it is amazing. I mean, I was blown away, about him horseback riding, as you say, by himself. Horseback riding when you can see can be very, very difficult.
I don't horse ride. I'm too scared. But as he says, I have zero fear. And maybe it's because he can't. I don't know. He just throws himself into things, and he says that otherwise he gets bored. And so he's never kind of stops exploring things. The other day I saw him, we were doing some interviews together, and he'd just come back from his holiday on the boat. And I said, but Andrea, do you like swimming? I mean, do you go swimming? And his friend who was there goes, does he go swimming? He goes swimming, he goes windsurfing. And I can't go windsurfing. I know. So, I mean, he's pretty unstoppable. He's someone who's doesn't want to accept limits. And I suppose he's been this, he has certain limits that he grew up with, but he's not going to let things come in his way. And he also is someone who wants to embrace all the positives in his life. He's not going to focus on the negatives. He really is someone who's and I think that takes discipline. He's a very intelligent person, extremely highly educated, and he's made a decision that he's focusing on the positive and what brings joy to himself and the people around him. Obviously, he has moments of bad mood and irritation, and he's always pretending to actually be really lazy. He says, I'd rather be just relaxing. But actually, having spent time with him, you cannot say he's lazy, because him and Veronica are always on the road performing. And there's nothing lazy about that family, I tell you.
And what a beautiful message, though, too. I mean, for everyone, the message and the subtitle of this film, because I believe, he believes that he can, and I think it's, that's the better way of living life, is focusing on the positives. And yes, we're gonna have bad moments, and feel down at times, because we're human beings, but the true test is being able to come up out of that, out of those moments that we all have, and
Mm.
and learn from them and grow and become better human beings each time. But his this story visually, this film is amazing. It just truly, the cinematography is just so beautiful, and of course we have the music is too, of course,
The
in this.
music, the landscape,
Yes.
and the characters. When you're dealing with trying to portray such uh, a giant, you want the cinematography to reflect that and to film it in a way that celebrates the beauty in life as well. And Tuscany, I love Tuscany. I grew up there, and
I've been there once. I thought it was absolutely beautiful too.
impossible not to try and capture the beauty at its best.
Yes. Yes. And you did. And you did. Why now? Whose decision was it to do a documentary? You said they came knocking on your door. Who decided that, hey, now is the time to tell Andrea Bocelli's story?
I think we were lucky that because it was his 30th anniversary, it's been his 30th anniversary the past year, he had a sense of wanting to tell the story. Um, he feels in a place where he's ready to do that in a kind of, relaxed way. And a lot of people, I think, have wanted to make a film on Andrea Bocelli, and some people have made certain films about Andrea. I think he did one last year, which was a pilgrimage film on a sacred route in Italy. But I think really he wanted to tell it in his own words, and this thing about wanting to say it in Italian was really important to him. He doesn't. He's very frustrated speaking English, although he does speak good English because his Italian is so eloquent and beautiful, really like that of a man from another century.
Hmm.
It's really precise, and his use of Italian, Tuscan Italian is magnificent. And I think he's proud of that. He's someone steeped in literature, and he wants to be able to really express himself in his own words with the nuance and and familiarity that reflects the world that he's grown up in. So I think he felt ready because it was his 30th anniversary.
Interesting that there was so much archival footage. How did you get access to all of that?
It wasn't very easy to get the archive footage. There'd been some programs made that we had a really good archivist in Italy who I worked with before, and he found these archives at the beginning of his career when really he was in the piano bar, for instance, because he spent a long time playing in a piano bar, in a local piano bar in the middle of the Tuscan countryside before he got discovered. And he got discovered quite late, when his 30s, which I think was, very fortuitous because he was a very grounded person, and fame didn't distract him in many ways. But our archivist found these local TVs that had made reportages about him, and he was really known as someone who, was extraordinary because he played the piano and he was blind, but he had this great voice. And yeah, so the local girls loved him because his voice was so extraordinary and he was handsome.
Right.
And it's really interesting because in this, for instance, there's a piece of archive I'm thinking of. He is just before he got well, he was discovered, and then the interviewer is saying, so do you go around Italy much? And he says, no, I don't like to move away from Tuscany. I'm very happy here. I've got my animals, my horses, my friends. It's my mother. She keeps on sending the CDs out, but it's she who wants me to kind of leave this place. I'm very happy here. Cut to 5 years later, and he's a phenomenon around the world. Yeah, going all around the globe. But his heart is very much a homebody. He likes his roots. He likes his family home. And as he says, he's never had a fight with any of his friends. He still has his
Mm.
friends from high school that are very close to him. Sometimes he goes traveling with them.
That's amazing. It's amazing. And with the relationship he has with his beautiful wife, and again, those scenes of them bike riding. It's
Honestly. I
extraordinary.
mean, he cycles down the road where he lives in Porto de Marmi alone. And Veronica is always trying to kind of guard him. And of course, she sees the perils more than he does. He just goes. Um, yeah, but they do cycle together quite a lot. I like the banter between them because, married couples, they've been together for 20, more than, I mean, maybe 23, 25 years or something like that. And so it's almost a role play that couples get, after they've been together so long. And they're very funny together.
Was it difficult for her and their daughter, like, also beautiful and lovely and has a beautiful voice? I think I watched I think it was a Christmas special this past year with them. And his daughter sang on that, and his wife sang, and that was the first time I knew he even had a daughter that could sing. So, and she's quite talented and quite
Very,
precocious, very
very talented. And we captured this beautiful moment, very human moment where she's singing in Madison Square Gardens for the first time with him. And
amazing.
she's sharing the stage with him and singing Alleluia. But we really capture her nerves and her stage fright and this magical moment. She's young and she's singing in front of, I don't know how many people,
A
50,000.
lot. Thousands and thousands of people in Madison Square Garden.
And
It's
you see
daunting for anybody.
haunted for anyone. And you see this little girl saying, "But I'm nervous." And the parents are saying, "Don't be nervous. It's just the same as singing in front of 2,000 people. It makes no difference." "Oh, yes, it does. I'm all cold and I'm nervous." And they just kind of relax and just she really just, I mean, she's grown up in that ambience. She's grown up between stages, backstages, playing with all the musicians, and the dancers. Anyway, we were lucky because we captured the moment before she went on stage and her nerves and then her incredible performance, which is extraordinary. Her
Yes.
voice is just a dream, and the audience knows it within you know half a minute. They know that they're hearing something extraordinary, and then we have her play the song, and she's so relieved to have conquered her fear, and then she kind of runs down the stage and jumps about like a little girl, so excited and to have conquered this fear. And it was really lovely to have her conquer the stage fright just after we've in the editing. And there, we have Andrea describe his own stage fright that he experienced when he was very young. And, he was propelled very quickly on these stages all over the world and singing opera. And when he discovered how he had to learn and perfect his technique, because that took some time. It's only when he was singing with Pavarotti that he realized that Pavarotti, who was a lot older than him, could hold the notes much longer and wasn't getting tired. And then he realized he had a lot of technique. But he had the voice, he had a talent, he'd practiced that talent, that gift, but he also had to conquer the technique. And then he explains what that technique is, and it's really interesting because there's almost something athletic behind the attitude of an opera or a tennis, the
Hmm.
way you breathe, the way your diaphragm works and your muscles. And to get to know all that is such a privilege, I felt, because we never get to hang out with an opera singer for that long. And, to spend an hour and a half with a tenor, hearing what really goes on behind the scene. And he's always extremely nervous of this vocal cord. You get the sense that this voice that he feels has been bestowed on him, from above, and that he's just has this gift, and he's very blasé, and he says, "Oh, I was just born with it," but actually he works very hard to keep it in good shape. He doesn't eat too much. He doesn't drink hardly. He's a fit person. He takes care of himself in order to let the voice shine and be at the best, at the top.
It's amazing. It was wonderful to watch that process and discover that because there's so many people who have a gift, and but don't necessarily use it wisely. Let's put it that way, you know. And he knew it is a
Mm.
gift, and he honors that and treats it the way a gift should be treated, with dignity and respect and love. And so that process was is very interesting to watch and unfold in this documentary. What was the hardest part of filming this for you, Kazuma?
What was the hardest bit? The hardest bit for me, perhaps, was not being able to film. The performances were filmed by a lot of multi-camera who, who were not organized by me because they come with the show. So
Okay.
sometimes, just technically, I would have liked to have had, this shot, that shot. So, when you have certain things which is out of control. And of course, documentary as a genre is something interesting. Well, I love it because so much of it is out of your own control, and you're trying to capture reality, and you're trying to capture people, being themselves. And I find it really magical that because you have to be in tune with your crew and your cinematographer and your sound person, and there's a lot of preempting and there's a lot of imagining what the scene might be like, but you never know what's really going to happen. But there are just some moments where I would have, liked to have even more control, particularly in filming the performances. But overall, this film was really a joy to make. And I tell you what was extraordinary was to be so close to Andrea whilst he's practicing, because to feel the voice, not just to hear it, but to feel the voice hit you
Mm.
is great, is incredible. And you when you go and watch a show, you don't feel the sound waves hitting you, and the way he projects his voice really hits you, and that's quite. I hadn't envisaged that, and I hadn't imagined it before I experienced it.
Probably was like a
It's a joy to make. The film was a joy to make. I had supportive producers, and um, yes, it was one of those little gems that don't turn up very often in your life. So I was really glad to do it.
almost like a spiritual experience. It sounds like, you know, out of
Well,
body.
he had some spiritual. I think being with Andrea does automatically, it does rub off on you to a person who's so able to focus on the positive and has a certain, has this incredible faith
Hmm.
that not everyone has, but has a faith that things that happen are meant to happen, and that you can accept things because them if they happen, they're meant to happen. And that in that way, it is an inspiring. Um, it was an inspiring experience to be around them, around him and his and Veronica as well. Yeah.
Did making this documentary, just listening to you now, did it change you in some way? Did you feel a shift within yourself because of being around that type of energy? And yeah.
Yes, as I said, and being around this type of energy definitely had an effect, not just on me, but the whole crew. The Italian are my great crew. I worked with them before, some of them, at least the cinematographer. But, previously I've done a fiction film with them or a series, and, they're rowdy and they want their coffee at 11 o'clock and they want their focaccia by 11. And, the Roman crew can be quite, full of energy and a bit too rowdy. But in his presence, everyone behaved really impeccably. And actually, Veronica did compliment us and said this was the easiest crew to work with because we really tried to tread lightly. We were in their house and in their everyday life and in their microcosm. And you want to respect that and show them that you are you are you're going to be responsible with that, and you're not going to tread all over their house in a kind of disrespectful way, but also capturing the reality honestly. So if there's a bit of bickering between him and Veronica, let's not censor that because that is also life. So you don't want to do a kind of total filtering system. You also want to capture what makes us human. So to see the humanity behind the legend and the celebrity, I think it's something that's reassuring to everyone and only makes people appreciate you more. So it changed me also because it's really beautiful to see that something like opera can live in a house and be something alive. And in his house, opera is still very much alive. He comes down the stairs and he's, you know, I'm not going to replicate the beautiful sounds that come out of his mouth because, I've got a cold as well. So, but he's there practicing it any time. You hear these very loud notes coming, reverberating across the house. So, and that's a unique experience because you feel, and I grew up in a house of artists, but more visual artists. And his was a house where music is alive.
Mm.
So that's also very comforting.
Beautiful. Well, it's a beautiful documentary. Everyone should see it. And having said that, where can people see it, Cosima?
Well, it's actually in many, many countries. And even if you're in Lima or if you're in Los Angeles or London or New York or Bucharest or Germany or Italy, it's opening worldwide. And you just have to go on the Andrea Bocelli cinema, on the Andrea Bocelli website, and you can put in the city you live in, and it tells you where it will be.
Wonderful. We'll put that in the social media posting when we post it. So everyone seek it out. As I said, once you see this, when you can buy it, I would say buy this for your library. It's one that you'll want to watch over and over again. And it's a beautiful film, beautifully done. And I think everyone will be inspired by this story because it's a story we don't know. We think we know someone, but we really don't know. And you do a wonderful job of letting us in and seeing his light even more. So thank you so much, Cosmo. It's a beautiful film.
Thank
Congratulations
you
on it.
so much, Jen. Pleasure to be on the show.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye.